Hi, I'm Jerry Katz. In non-duality community, we all try to talk to each other, but we're all sort of coming from different levels of understanding. And so what it means is that no one really 100% fully understands what the other person is saying. And we're always left trying to complete or adjust or correct what someone else is saying, and then they do the same to us. And we try to, we live between these levels, and no two people are the same. And that's kind of what non-duality community is about. It also makes the community very strong, because all these levels of understanding kind of are woven together. They're kind of braided together. They make the community quite strong. In fact, we'll get into that later. They make the community anti-fragile, which means that as it is attacked, it becomes stronger. It's not fragile, it's anti-fragile. And we'll talk about that, but I want to talk about how we come from different levels of understanding and experience and intention. An example of people coming from different levels is the most obvious is in the political arena, where you have conservatives and liberals. Clearly, these people are coming from their own level of understanding and experience, and of course they try to get the other group to come to their level, and each group tries to get the other group to get to their level, and that always fails, and it's been the case, I'm sure, since the first two people were around. So that's the classic example, I think, or a classic example of how people come from different levels. Now let's just jump into the non-duality community, because that's what we're dealing with. Probably this most basic level that someone can come from is that of curiosity or perhaps journalistic interest. So this is someone who really, isn't in part of the spirituality mainstream. Maybe it's a journalist who's been given an assignment to write about the phenomenon of non-duality. They don't really care about it, but they're doing their job. So they do some reading, some research. They find out who to interview. They interview Adyashanti, and right away, this is like conservative and liberals. You got people on two extremely different levels of understanding and experience and intention regarding non-duality. And again, that doesn't require any elaboration. Everyone gets it. There are far more subtle differences in levels of understanding. And let's talk about some of them. Let's go talk about some more levels at which people come from in the non-duality community. So one could be belief. That's a level. It means that you have some kind of an intellectual agreement with the ideas and teachings of non-duality. So you can say, I believe in non-duality. I like some of the ideas. We're all one. I believe in that. So again, you may not have the experience, but you're intuiting that there's something there. That's a level of belief, and you can come from that level and talk to people about it. And you'll be talking to people coming from different levels, and hopefully you'll learn something, and they'll learn something, and but everyone will go away. I'm slightly dissatisfied, probably. But that's an example of communication at the in non-duality community. Beyond belief, you could say it can go further and go into faith. This is sort of a trusting of the truth of the non-dual teachings. Again, it still it's not really a full realization or a full embodiment, the non-dual nature of reality. All right, so here we have three levels we talked about: one of curiosity, one of belief, one of faith, and then we can look at the levels of knowing and practice. And so the level of knowing, the understanding of non-duality is intellectual and experiential as well. People at this level, they're still doing practice, and they're doing meditation and self-inquiry and every kind of investigating to explore non-duality in daily life. It's an active investigation of the nature of reality. We can call that a level of knowing and of practice. Again, in your experience in non-duality community, you might come into people who are experiencing non-separation or maybe oneness. Or maybe the experience of oneness is one level and the experience of non-separation is another level. And as those two people communicate, you're going to get some differences, because the people experiencing oneness may say, well, may not understand the people coming from non-separation, because those coming from oneness can perceive someone experiencing oneness, whereas someone coming from the level of non-separation may say, no, there's no one experiencing it. So when those two start to have discussions, again, we see what happens in the community, in the non-duality community, what happens when that happens. So that's just two levels that interact. I'd say even beyond that, you can define a level of just what I would call freedom and playfulness. And this is just really no involvement in all these levels. It's just a fluid, a flow through life of spontaneous expression, a lot of humor. And there's just the freedom of the need for clarity, for intellectual clarity. I've done some videos on that. That's a level, freedom and playfulness. And when that guy or girl in that level starts communicating with every other level, anything can happen. And of course, we can come from more than one level. I think we predominantly will come from one level, but one or two levels. But most of us are pretty are capable of understanding almost all levels and communicating from every other level. I think we can all be pretty good at that, but we have our own favorite level we like to come from. Other levels can be those that are religion and those that are tradition-based. A couple of levels there. I won't have to say much more about that. There's a science-based level. People are just going to come from neuroscience and talk about that. There are people that are just based on memes. I mean, I don't know what you would call that level. It's just meme-based. They just understand, they know how to talk non-duality. They got the memes down. They can convince you of anything. They can be teachers. And the level I like to work at, of course, is community-based. That's I come from that level. I hope I can also represent other levels as well. But people know that's what I like to talk about that. So there's no level is absolutely separated from all other levels. But I think we'd like to be in one of those levels. And we're capable of moving throughout all the other levels, most of us, I think. Unless you're at the very beginning, unless you're coming from just, you're writing a journal, an article for a magazine, then you're not going to have that flowing. I think once you start getting into the experience of oneness or the experience of non-separation, you realize there's no other, you should be able to flow into all the other levels. Now, what your opinion will be of those levels, I don't know. Some may enjoy them, some may just say, hey, look, that person's not enlightened, just ignore them. You get that going. So it's the nature of it. That's the whole nature of it. So this whole non-duality community isn't really, obviously it's not one fixed level or one fixed state, but it's always changing, always growing, because any individual, how they live on certain levels, it's always changing, because we're always bringing in new information. We have new realizations, new experiences. Everything around us is changing. So the levels at which we function are always changing, not just for us, but for other people. And yet we're all trying to communicate. So it can be a mess. The way I see it, all the different levels of non-dual expression, all those levels that I talked about, they're all, I mentioned earlier, they all kind of weave together, and what happens is that it's a strong braiding. The non-duality community is strongly braided, and it's anti-fragile. And anti-fragility really means that the community grows stronger in the face of people challenging it. So all this diversity of expressions assures that the community doesn't depend on any single expression or any single level of engagement. So if one communication is kind of weak, then others can support it, others can develop it. This integration of all these levels makes the community adaptable and certainly inclusive and just always changing and getting stronger and tougher. By braiding together all these different levels, the intellectual, the experiential, the playful, the communal, the non-duality community becomes a living, breathing organism that grows stronger with time and with all the challenges that it meets. Each level brings its own strengths, and it creates a space where people can find their path and contribute and deepen their understanding. So anti-fragility really is a quality that's highlighted in this talk, and it works with the two other qualities of non-duality community that I've talked about. One is decentralization, meaning there's no center to non-duality community. There's no person, there's no teacher, no religion, no tradition. There's no book, there's no place, no mountain or place you got to go to. There's no center to non-duality. So non-duality community is anti-fragile, it's decentralized, and then the third quality is that it's self-correcting, and that goes with anti-fragility. It's self-correcting, so there isn't any final, conclusive understanding or statement that everyone must agree with. It just doesn't. You can say the most truthful thing in the world, and you're going to have someone say, well, it's not quite that. Consider this, consider that. That's what keeps non-duality community going. No conclusion. There's no end. There are no, everyone is included. Everyone can find their level and be included. All those levels weave into a very strong community. Community's anti-fragile, decentralized, self-correcting. So welcome to it.